Muted.
What problem are we solving? Oftentimes we know that what we say is just as important as how we say things, but what if you don't even know what to say to prospects? What if you just feel like you're new to the industry or you're kind of getting tongue-tied, you just don't even know where to begin? Today we're going to look at a variety of different communication styles, and we're going to look at why each element is important. We're going to get really down into all the details and really look at what those things play in your sales process and help your communication improve so that way your sales can improve too. Our agenda for today, we're breaking it into 3 parts. We have a lot of information to cover. So the first part, we're going to look at how your first impressions impact your sales, how you communicate with your team, how electronic communication can impact sales, and the follow-ups. Next, we're going to look at how to sell different add-on services that Wasatch offers. And then finally, we're going to look at what we call shopper personalities. We're going to look at 2 distinct different apartment shoppers and look at what makes up their personality and how to sell to them best. So our very first section, we are going to be looking at how communication isn't just about our speech. Sorry, give me 1 second. First, we're going to look at first impressions. Sorry, we're having some technical difficulties. Okay, first impressions. So the very first thing that someone's going to notice is the way that you dress. And we all know that everyone is required to dress professionally, but if you don't know the why behind it, it kind of makes it hard to want to dress professionally. So a professional dress really gives this idea that you are knowledgeable and trustworthy. Believe it or not, name tags really do help residents and prospects remember who you are, and they feel a lot more connected to you. So name tags are an important part of the first impression steps, really, and everything is required. So if you should have been given an overview of the dress code when you were first hired, so we're going to go through that right now just in case you've forgotten. You'll want to make sure that you're dressed neat and clean when you're at work. Nothing extreme as far as style goes. Make sure that all your tattoos your visible tattoos are covered, and take out all of your facial piercings. And if you do want to accessorize, just make sure that you do it professionally, nothing too crazy. And like Jenny said, make sure you're wearing your name tag, and all of that is in order. Next, we want to look at body language. It's a really large part of communication. If you are standing there and your arms are crossed, or you have your resting mean face on, then it's going to look like you're being standoffish. So make sure that you smile when guests enter your leasing center, and that you appear open and ready to help. Make sure that you get up and stand and get out from behind your desk. Because the length of time you take to approach them really impacts how open they are to you. Also, make sure you watch the way you interact with the person ahead of them, because that will also impact their receptiveness to you as well. They're going to be watching how you speak to the guest ahead of them, and they're going to take that into consideration when they speak with you. So overall, be aware of the way you come across and make sure that you are portraying yourself appropriately. Also, we want to make sure that when guests ask you a question that you know the answer. If you don't know, make sure you find someone that does. If you're feeding a guest so many "I don't know," they're going to begin to wonder, well, what do you know? If there's a question that you're unsure of, make sure that you reply with, "That's a great question. Let me find out for you." And then either go and ask someone right away so that the prospect can see that you're trying to find out, or write it down and follow up with the prospect by the end of the day through either email or phone. That way you can ensure that even though you don't know the answer right then and there, that you're going to know soon and that you're going to relay that information to the guest. So that wraps up how first impressions help us connect with prospects, even without saying anything. Just take a moment to consider which of these areas you can improve on and write it down. Does your dress need improvement? Do you need to monitor your body language more closely, or do you need to find ways to become better informed? Just take a minute and think about where you can improve the most.
And if I had to suggest any of these areas, it's the body language part that often is missed on the mystery shop. Often you're not getting out from behind your desk, you're not walking up and greeting them, you're not offering them refreshments, and all of those little things add up to actually be really impactful to them, because really put yourself in the mind of a prospect. You're coming into a place where you don't know anyone. You might be coming into an office that has a bunch of little offices, or maybe you're coming into a leasing office that has a lot of desks everywhere. I don't know what your leasing office looks like, but when Tiffany and I go mystery shopping, the second that we walk into a leasing office, we're intimidated and we don't know where to go. No one's coming to approach us. So really keep in mind that the prospects are uncomfortable. They don't really know what they're supposed to be doing. So if you're not getting up to greet them, they're just going to have that barrier against you right away. So your communication really impacts your sales in the sense that you don't even have to be saying anything, but if you're not getting up to greet them, that's actually a huge way that you're speaking to them, that you're not really going to get up to really talk to them. So if you don't really know where to begin with this section, I would begin with the body language.
All right, so next we're going to be talking about communicating with each other. This is actually a really large part of communication. A lot of prospects watch the way that you speak to each other, so we just want to make sure that we're being professional. Don't put each other down. One time Jenny and I went on a market survey, and the leasing agent had a trainee with her, and he didn't 100% know what he was doing, but you could tell he was trying. And the trainee tried to make conversation with us, and he tried to connect with us, but the leasing agent looked really annoyed with him. So then there came a point at the end of the tour when we came back to the office and the agent had no idea where the trainee went, and he had failed to communicate with her that he was going to go unlock the front door, and she had no idea where he had gone. And she voiced us that she didn't know where he went and started rolling her eyes at him, and she started to say, well, he has no idea what he's doing. And this didn't look good to us. It seemed like the team was divided and that they couldn't cooperate as a team, and it also looked really unprofessional to us. So just make sure that when you're working with each other to portray a picture of teamwork, because it's very important that guests have the feeling of harmony when they go into your team presence. Which also leads me to my next point. Make sure that everyone knows what's happening. Make sure that your guests and team members all know what's happening. In the previous story, the leasing agent didn't know where the trainee had went because he didn't communicate to anyone what he was doing. So it's important that if you are going to go leave to do something, make sure you let someone know, because if you're going to go for a tour or you're going to go get some refreshments for residents, it's good that everybody has like a time estimate of how long it's going to be. And that way they can know whether they need to lock up the office or how long you're going to be gone. If there are two of you in the office, make sure to choose a strategic time to leave the office. If you don't need to leave the office, wait until the other person returns. The longer the prospect has to wait outside, the less open they're going to be when you do come back. So if you can avoid putting the sign on the office, then please do so. If you cannot avoid it, then make sure you're not wasting time when you are away from your desk. So that wraps up how communicating with each other can affect our sales. The truth is that prospects are watching how you communicate with each other, and it can affect the way or whether or not they want to rent from your property. So we want to be aware of how we are communicating with each other in the office. Next, we're going to be talking about electronic communication. So the first thing we want to look at is texting. So if you do use, we do use texting to talk to our residents. And if you can see this little cat, he is begging to live in our community, and that's because we use texting. So we can use texting to relay events to our residents. We can let them know what's happening on your property, such as if they have a package or if there's any maintenance happening. Like I said, you can let them know about any events you have happening. And we also use it to talk to residents. I don't know if you guys knew this, but your residents can send replies through text message alerts. If they do get a message from the property, they can just hit reply, and someone from the call center at Rent will respond to them. So make sure your residents know about that, that if they do have any questions, they can use that. Next is social media. What do we do with our social media presence? This meme kind of asks the same question, but here's what we can use social media for. We use it for our prospects. So many times prospects send inquiries through Facebook messages or through comments. So just be professional when responding to these. If someone asks you how much an apartment is, make sure to leave a price range, not the exact price, and link them to our website for more information. And then from there, they're going to be able to view all the information that they need. And make sure you communicate as if it was an email. Don't just use 1 or 2 word replies. Take the time to explain and sign your name at the end of the message as well. Also, we are no longer responsible for replying to reviews, so we're going to make sure that we leave those up to Rent Dynamics to respond to any reviews that we receive. And then we use this to talk to current residents as well. Just like with texting, we can leave any events that are happening or alerts. If the jacuzzi is under maintenance for a certain time, or if there's a special 4th of July party, let your residents know over social media. For Craigslist, we want to make sure that we are keeping it professional. Make sure that your postings look neat. This means no emojis in the title, and make sure that you're using proper grammar. Try not to use all caps. This Twitter post says, "I appreciate when the landlord writes their apartment listings in all caps because it lets me know what the vibe is like up front." Which, this is funny, but it's also really true. Be careful not to write like this in your postings. Don't write in all caps. And then make sure you have good enough good content so that your postings are looking presentable. Make sure to give your postings a double check for spelling and grammar before you post them. So this sums up how electronic communication can affect our sales. Keep all of these tips in mind when you're using these methods. Now we're going to be talking about following up communications. So follow-up communications, using follow-up calls is very important to follow through with. It allows you to the prospect and get a feel for where they're at in the decision process. If you do get an answering machine, make sure that you're leaving a cheerful message. They're going to remember your personality, and then it's going to prompt them to consider their choices with more intent. An example of a good message you could leave would be something like this. "Hello, Jenny. This is Tiffany from Arroyo Vista Apartments. I'm calling to follow up with you and see where you're at in the decision-making process. We would love to have you and your dog Fluffy live in our community. We have a newly remodeled dog park right by an open unit that I think you would love. If you would like any more information, please feel free to call me at the office at 555-5555-55555. Have a great day." This just reminds the prospect that you're still an option, and it adds a little personal touch to the message so that they know that you remember them and that you want them to live in your community. Follow-up calls are mandatory for each prospect, so the call needs to be made within 48 hours. The closer to the show, the better. The reality is very few management companies are actually calling their guests after the tour, and this will really help us stand out against our competition and show that we're going the extra mile. Jenny and I did a bunch of market surveys, and we probably went to like 10 properties, and not a single one of them called us back. So this is something that really does set us apart from other companies. So next, we're going to be talking about thank you notes. They are often forgotten, but they are very important. They add a personal touch to our selling technique, and it allows the prospect that they are valued to receive a handwritten thank you note. This is also an essential part of the mystery shop, so we should be sending out thank you notes to every prospect that comes our way. If you feel that you don't have any time to do this, I would definitely suggest ordering a stack of postcards and writing the message on them when you have any downtime. Then they're ready to go when the prospect leaves, and you just need to put an address on it. If you don't have enough time to write a bunch of thank you notes, write smaller amounts each morning when you arrive to the office the previous day. This is part of the follow-up portion for every single prospect. So an example of a thank you note would be something like, "Dear Jenny, thank you for visiting Canyon Club Apartments. We hope that you enjoyed touring our community, and we think that you would love living here. We hope that you consider making Canyon Club your new home. Sincerely, Tiffany." It doesn't have to be anything long, just a short little thank you note to send their way. So following up with email is equally important. It allows the prospect to quickly glance at their email, and they'll remember what they had seen at your property. They can remember the great experience they had, and it'll remind them to consider a decision. You may also send additional information about your property through email. They are considered a bonus follow-up. They are not required, but they do provide an additional contact source for your prospect if they don't want to call the office. Jenny and I visited many properties, and we didn't get one single follow-up email as well. So just make sure that you do this if you have any time. Following up is one of the most important pieces that we want to make sure we are actually following through with.
When we talk about mystery shop scores and wanting to improve them, if you have one area of improvement, it's probably the follow-up section. If you're not taking the time to actually do a phone call, or you're doing it but it's not within 48 hours, it's not getting you any points. So if you have one area that you want to focus on after this training is over, focus on your follow-up communication. Again, we gave you some really easy examples of how to send a phone call or how to send a thank you note. Again, those two things are requirements for every single prospect. They're not optional. It's going to set us apart. It's going to help us get that extra sale. The email is the only part that's optional. If you so wish to leave an email, or if the prospect tells you that their preferred communication is email, then I would do that. But for right now, just focus on doing your follow-up calls and your follow-up thank you notes with every single person. So that wraps up our part one about how what we say is just as important as how we say it. Right now we're going to look at overcoming objection. I'm sure that everyone has faced this, and it can be a little intimidating to try and sell an add-on service, especially if you get rejected over and over again. So we're going to look at ways that you can overcome that. So when we're looking at add-on services, we're looking at things like parking, Rent Plus, pets, things like that, things that are not required by the residents, but that help us bring in additional revenue. So as for Wasatch as a whole, it's really important that we are pushing add-on services because it helps us bring in additional income. So it might seem kind of overwhelming if you're not comfortable asking for the sale. This is the most important thing. If you only take away one thing from this section, take away the fact that you need to ask for the sale. Wasatch treats add-on services by what we call an assumptive close, meaning that you should assume that that person will agree to opt into your service instead of asking them at a later point if they'd like to opt in. So like Rent Plus, how the person's already enrolled in it unless they tell you otherwise. That's what we mean by an assumptive close. So again, asking for that sale is the very first step. If you're afraid to ask, you're never going to get the sale. If our prospects were always just asking us about Rent Plus, we probably would have no problem selling it. But that's not the reality, right? A lot of us are struggling getting that extra income, getting those pets to come, getting the parking spots filled because we're too afraid to ask for the sale. The final thing that I want to point out is that if you're going over these services way too fast, if you're just rushing through them because you feel like you have to ask, that person's probably not going to get the benefit of them, and they're probably not going to agree to enroll in the service, right? If you're just saying, oh, we have parking in garages, do you want one? And they're like, no, and then you move on, like, they're probably never going to enroll in that. So let's look at some ways that you practically can sell these services. The first thing we're going to look at is parking. So you might have a lot of prospects or even residents say, I can't believe we have to pay for a parking spot. That's crazy. Your job in this is to persuade them that this is an important feature if they're going to leave early or arrive really late. So one thing that I was not anticipating before I moved on to one of our properties was the parking. I did not think it was going to be so hard to find a parking spot, and now I'm left parking on the street every single time I come home because I tend to come home past, rush hour traffic. I tend to come home past like 9 p.m. and the traffic gets really backed up, or the parking gets really backed up. So I had to go into my property and actually ask for a parking spot. But what I would suggest you do is that you're proactive in asking for the sale. So when you're in that leasing meeting, when you're going over the leasing paperwork, I would try and bring in a personal story of parking to really help them feel like they can envision themselves trying to park at night. So for example, we only have parallel parking at my property. Like, you have to park parallel, and I cannot park parallel at all. So what I would say is parking is on a first come, first served basis, and you do not have to pay for parking if you do not wish to, but purchasing a spot will actually ensure that you always have a spot close to your unit, and it's going to save you so much time and gas searching for a spot each night. And I highly suggest that you invest in a spot. It's only $20 a month. Are you interested in purchasing a spot? And with that, you've given them a really easy way to feel comfortable that they could envision themselves knowing, oh, well, I always come home late and I don't really know how to parallel park, so I probably should purchase a spot. Even if they say no to this, it's totally fine, move on, but at least you gave them the opportunity and you had, the confidence to ask for the sale. If you have a parking spot that's a little less than $20 or a little more than $20, obviously just customize this little speech to fit exactly what your property has. So that's what I would suggest for how to sell a parking spot.
And overcoming objections when it comes to Rent Plus can sound kind of difficult. A lot of residents may object and say that they don't want to pay any more than they already have to. But just kindly remind them that this feature is very affordable, and it only costs the price of a latte or a burger and fries. It's only $5 a month, and it's going to help them build their credit in the long run, which is a really great value. So a response that you could say to them is, Wasatch Property Management is the only management company that is offering this service. You might be unfamiliar with how it works, so let me take a moment to explain it to you and see if it's something that you might be interested in. Each month you'll pay your rent on time. Rent Plus will send your payment history to the credit bureaus, where they will record your history of your on-time payments. This really helps boost your credit score, and in about 6 months you're going to start seeing a huge improvement to your credit score. All you need to do is opt in, and Rent Plus will take care of the rest. So this is a really good response you could use in overcoming this objection, and it will show them the value in using this product.
Because more often than not, the people, like prospects, are not familiar with Rent Plus. They don't really know that this service exists. It's pretty new to the industry, and it right now is just with our company. So if they've never rented with us before, they probably don't know what this is. So it's really important to take that extra step and explain it to them, especially if everyone's already automatically opted into it. It's important that we explain what it is so that way we can build that trust with them. We don't want to be blindsiding anyone, right? We don't want to be having all these hidden fees to people. We want to make sure that we're being upfront. So that's how we would sell Rent Plus.
Many people, when they might own a pet, but they're not sure if they're going to bring their pet with them because they may say, oh, it costs too much, or the property is too small for my pet. So just remind them that we are a pet-friendly community, and your property may even have a dog park for them to play at, or point out where the nearest dog park is. Just reassure them that their pet will be valued when they live in our apartment homes. If they are on the fence, just remind them that it's okay if they wait until they settle in a little bit before moving their pet in. Many times when you're asking if someone wants to bring their pet, the extent of the conversation is, oh, are you bringing a pet? No. Okay. But we want to make sure that we're actually asking for the sale the best that we can. If they have mentioned anything about having a pet or maybe wanting to get one in the future, just attempt to persuade them that this would be a really great option, and we want to go out and actually ask for the sale when it comes to pets.
And the great thing, if you're on a tour and they haven't brought up pets at all and you see someone walking their dog, or if you have a little dog park on your property and you walk by it when you're touring, it's a great time to bring it up right there. You could say, oh, well, I know that you mentioned before that you were thinking about bringing a pet or you weren't sure if you were going to bring one, but I would just like to let you know that we are a pet-friendly community. We would love to have your pets with us, and if there's any other questions I can answer for you, like, I would be happy to help you out. So asking for a pet sale doesn't have to be this strategic, like, manipulative thing, but it should be more than just you saying, are you going to have a pet, and then saying no and you moving on. So it shouldn't just be something that's filled out on the guest card. This really is an opportunity for a sale. So that's how to sell a pet. To sell a garage, this one kind of goes along with the parking spot that I mentioned earlier. And something that's really interesting is that garages are one of the most sought after features. So we did a huge survey, and we found out that right after washers and dryers, garages are the second most sought after feature, which is kind of interesting because it seems like this is kind of a bigger expense and that you might be kind of intimidated to ask for the sale because it might seem like no one would want this. And you might be getting people that say, well, I don't think I need one. But you can remind them that garages are not just available for their cars, but also a great area to have additional storage items if they have larger items that they want to store in a safe and secure place. Also that a garage would keep their car away from the weather and things like that. So If you have someone that's like, oh, I just don't think I need one, you could say something like, garages will also ensure that you will have a parking spot close to your apartment and it will be protected from the weather. Garages also provide additional storage space for oversized items that don't fit in your apartment. Would you like to secure a garage today? I actually have one right available next to your unit. So if you have a leasing office that's super close to like the drive-in, I think most of our properties are built that way where they are not driving through the property before they get to the office. The prospect might not see that you have garages. I know from my property, like you don't see it before you get into the leasing office. So if you have prospects that don't know that you have garages, you're never going to get that sale, right? That just makes sense. If this person's not being proactive and seeking out a garage, they probably don't know that you have one. So if you have the opportunity when you take them on the tour to walk past garages, then do so. If the garages are kind of out of the way of the tour, just at least mention it that you do have them available. That's how I would suggest how to sell a garage.
So renter's insurance is typically required, but some tax credits it may not be required. But just remind the prospect that it may be easier for them to get their renter's insurance through us. Offer it as an opt-in as a way to make the process easier for them. And don't forget, if we don't ask for the sale, we're not going to get it. So just remind them that renter's insurance is to protect their items in case anything were to happen, and that it's really easy to sign up and actually pretty affordable. You can give them an estimated amount for the renter's insurance. So something that you might be able to do to them is for a 12-month contract, you'd only be paying about $150, which will cover $100,000 worth of damages in case something were to happen, but we would never hope that it would. But we want to give them the option to sign up for this. So just make the process easier for them by offering this product.
Cool. Okay, the last one we're going to look at is trash services. If you are on a Utah property, you probably have something called these concierge trash services. If you're like on the West Coast like we are, I've never heard of this product. I was unfamiliar with it, and I think you might find that your prospects are also unfamiliar with it. I often read reviews of our properties, and I like to get insight from what our residents are feeling. And a lot of times residents are saying that they can't believe they had to pay for trash services, that they had no idea that these fees were even in their leasing agreement. So I want to just emphasize that it's important that even if the product is not optional, even if they have to opt into it and they have to pay for it, we still need to be giving it as like this benefit to them. Like we can't just assume that they'd be okay with paying an extra $10 for trash each month. So make sure that you're actually glamorizing the service when you're signing the lease. And here we're not asking for the sale, we're just trying to give them information up front. So you could say something like, and we also offer concierge trash services for the convenience of all of our residents. You'll just simply place your trash outside your apartment and one of our service members will pick it up. So they're not really asking for the sale, but I'm giving them the knowledge up front that we're going to offer this premier service, but it's not really an option to opt in. So that wraps up how to sell an add-on service. I see in the comments that someone wants to print this out. We highly encourage that you print out this workbook or this PDF. It's listed under the training materials of your go-to training. We would really recommend that if you have one of these services that you really struggle with, that you just don't feel comfortable talking about, if you're not good at selling Rent Plus, if you're really not good at selling pets, like just print this out and customize it and practice it, because the more you can get like comfortable with it, the better your sales are going to be. And it's going to feel much less like you're being unnatural. It's just going to seem like it's coming, you know, just as a conversation topic that, oh, I would love to tell you about our garages. Are you interested in purchasing one today? So we really recommend that you print out all of these services and really look at which area you have the opportunity to practice in and get, you know, your skills up. So that's part 2 of our training. The last part that we're going to look at is what we call shopper personalities. We'll spend the next 15 minutes here and get you guys out in about 15 minutes. This is for the leasing agent that wants to go above and beyond. This is for the leasing agent that says, I want to customize my sales pitch. I really want to be a pro leasing agent. I want to be recognized for a promotion. I want to move up to a property manager, and I need to get better at my closing skills. Like I need to have more information because I'm really struggling with my closing. I just don't know how to ask for the sale. Tiffany and I are going to break down 2 main shopper personalities. We did some research. We found out that about 90% of people fall into one of these 2 categories. So the first one we're going to look at is what we call the strategist. So this is someone that I would highly identify with. This is definitely my personality. I'm very detail-oriented. I really love to get as much information as I can. This person's identifying traits would be that they've gathered a lot of information online. So when you have that prospect that comes in that knows exactly what they want, that already knows the price, that knows the floor plan, that knows when it's going to be available, someone that's already read reviews, this is that person, the strategist. So they've gathered a lot of information outside of just what you're going to tell them. They've also collected a lot of their own information. Like they're not going to rely on you to tell them what you have available. They already know. They probably already have some specific questions in mind that they want to ask you. So when you're trying to identify this person, if you're going to go beyond just asking, oh, what size bedroom do you want, and are you going to have pets, and when are you going to move in, if you want to take it above and beyond those just basic questions and really figure out what their personality is, you could ask them things like, have you already seen our website? Are you familiar with our floor plans? Do you have an idea of which floor plan you like? These people, if they are a strategist, they will already identify those, like they'll answer those questions, and you'll be confident that this person already knows what they want and they're probably a strategist. So let's move into how to sell to them. What I would do is speak in measurable terms. So I would say something like, our newly remodeled fitness center is open 24 hours versus saying, oh, we have a huge fitness center and it's always open. Do you kind of see the difference in them? One of them is measurable, meaning that they can pick out specific things that are interesting to them. They know that it's new, they know that it's remodeled, and they know that it's open 24 hours. Versus the next statement, if you just say it's always open, like to me, I have no idea what that means. Does that mean that to you it seems like it's always open, or is it truly always open? So speak in the in the first example where you're giving them measurable things that they can take with them. It's important that you give them all of the specs, especially in a paper form. So they want to know square footage, they want to know pricing, but they even want to know things like policies, any kind of fees. They want to know your website. They probably want your business card. They might even want to know what are their next steps. These prospects tend to go to a lot of properties and gather a lot of information. It's really important that if you don't give them a paper form, you're just going to be lost. They're not going to remember who you are. So it's important that you give them, even if your form doesn't have all of the policies or the fees written or the website address, make sure that you handwrite it, because those things are really important to these kinds of prospects. It's really important that you keep asking, what other questions can I answer for you? Because remember, these people have a lot of questions in mind that they're really interested in finding out. So it's important that you can give them enough information, because they already know what they want. It's just important that we tell them enough so that way they realize that we can give them exactly what they want. This shopper will probably complete the next steps if you tell them what they are. So if you tell them during the tour, filling out an application and being approved is your next step. You can even say the application can be done online, or you can fill it out while you're here, and I can actually answer any questions that you have about the application if you'd like to fill it out here. So all of these things would work really well with a strategist. What you can expect after the tour from this person, you can expect a call. These shoppers probably call the office after they've toured. They might even come and tour a second time. I know that my poor leasing staff, when I was picking an apartment, I called so many times because it was so important to me, all these little details. But the fact that everyone was so available to help me, that I could email, that I could call, that I could visit, really meant a lot to me, and it made me feel like I could really trust the leasing staff. So it's important that if you identify this prospect as a strategist, that you are available to answer any questions that you have. It's really important that you do a follow-up with this shopper. Even if you feel like I never do follow-ups and you're trying to get better at it, make sure that you're doing a follow-up with these people, because again, it's really important to them that they feel like they can communicate with the office. So it's important that they're getting a phone call and a thank you letter. So that wraps up how this person, like how their personality really plays into the communication style, and how your communication will really sell yourself and sell your property. We're going to look at closing techniques in a few more slides, but first let's look at the next personality.
So the prospector is one that I really identify with. They don't really know 100% what they want to start out with. They need to go and see how it feels by experiencing it. They might be very talkative, and one way that you can identify this person is by asking them have you visited our website, or do you know what floor plan you like? If the answer is no, then they're probably a prospector, and like I said, they're probably not 100% sure what they want. They most likely haven't done any prior research. So you can also tell that this person is a prospector by if they bring someone with them. This person might not even be living with them. It could be a friend or a parent, but they like to get the second opinion of others, and they really value that opinion. How you would sell to this person is that they feel comfortable with, like I said, experiencing the model and conversing with the leasing agent. They're probably a little less concerned with the details. In fact, if you throw a bunch of details at them, it's probably going to overwhelm them and turn them off. So this person would do really well with conversations that include, oh, how would your furniture fit over here? Or would you have a short commute to work? They really need to spend time picturing themselves living in your community. So just walk through all of the amenities and everything that you have at your community so that they can actually see everything and feel everything and experience it. The more that they can picture themselves living there, the better. And the more that you can personalize and put some more anecdotes in there, the better chance you'll have at having them lease at your community. Make sure that you get out from behind your desk and you actually go and speak with them. Make sure that when you are closing, that you close it in the apartment rather than at your desk, because you'll probably have a better chance at closing when you're in the apartment and they're actually experiencing it than you would have closing at your desk.
Cool.
So what you can expect after the tour is make sure that you are following up with them. They're probably a little indecisive, so make sure that when you do follow up, that it will give them a better chance of just remembering that they actually need to make a decision. It's our job to show them that our community is what they actually want when following up with them. And make sure that you personalize the follow-up as well. At the end of the tour, take notes of everything that you can remember, and so that later on when you are following up, that it'll make details easier to recall and that you can reference their personal life when you are doing the follow-up.
Great. So that really wraps up the two different personalities. So again, we have that strategist that's super detail-oriented, that probably wants a lot of information up front. They want all the details. It's really important to them, versus a prospector who's someone that's a little bit more relaxed, someone that really wants to just get a feel for what it's like. This person tends to make decisions based off of their emotional tie to it, versus a strategist that makes decisions based off of the details of it. So let's look at the closing techniques that work best with each of these different people. Probably the suggestion that I would have, the biggest suggestion I would have, is that if I could, would you close? So this is that close that says, well, if I could give you this, if I could give you that, then would you lease here? Would you fill out the application? Would you want to move in? So maybe they've brought up the fact that they really want an apartment in the front of the property, or they really want an apartment that has an attached garage with it. They really want an apartment that's right next to the pool, or they want an accent wall. This often tends to work the best because they're already giving you all this information that they want, and all you have to do is basically promise them that you can give it to them. So it sounds something like, well, if I could give you that accent wall, if I could get that painted for you, then would you leave your deposit today? It's important to really listen to what this person wants. And if you have a lot of units available, they don't need to know that. If you have a lot of units available and you already know that you can give them a unit close to the parking lot or close to the front of the office, and you already have that open and available, say that. Do this close, because I think you're really going to have success with it. The next one I would suggest is what we call the priority waiting list. These people, these types of shoppers, might be looking at so many properties. They might be looking so far in advance that they're not able to purchase one today or secure one today. So what you could do is offer them the opportunity to be on the priority waiting list, and this will actually secure a spot for them, and it will make them feel like they're really valued there and that they have good communication with you already. The next one that I would suggest is what we call the 24-hour close. Again, this person might be they might be looking at so many different apartments, and they might be trying to find all the little details and figuring out the exact one that they want, that if we don't give them a time frame, they're just going to keep looking. So the 24-hour close works well by saying, if you leave me your deposit today, I can hold this apartment for you off the market until tomorrow while you think about your choice. And this will give them just that a little bit of time to kind of feel secure. You can offer them the opportunity to contact you with any additional questions, that they're welcome to tour it again, that they're welcome to follow up with you at any time. So those are the closing techniques that I would suggest for the strategist. If you want to focus on one of them, I would focus on that very first one.
So for the prospector, my favorite is the personal invitation close. When you use this close, it's going to make them feel like they're your friend, and they will feel like you really want them to live there, and it's going to make them feel more at home. So this one is my favorite, and I really appreciate this one because it makes me feel like, oh, they actually like me. They want me to live here. So this is the one that I would use. Also, you can try the only close. Using this close is going to create a sense of urgency for them. And like I said, the prospector may not be 100% sure what they want, so it's going to prompt them to make a decision more quickly. And you may have a lot of apartments open, but there's only one apartment that is perfect for them. So just make sure you emphasize that, and this is the only one that we have that is going to be perfect for you, and we don't want you to lose that. The last one that I would use is the yes close. This person, the prospector, they need to be able to picture themselves living in this apartment. So by asking a series of yes questions, you'll be able to create an image for them. So ask them questions like, do you think your roommates would like the kitchen? Do you think your dog will enjoy the dog park? Wouldn't you love to work out in our fitness center? They just need to be able to picture themselves living there. And these types of questions will allow them to envision themselves doing that.
So this wraps up the closing technique, and we're not saying that you can't use different techniques on different people, especially if you're not able to identify their personality. But I'm guessing that you can if you're really asking more like qualifying questions. You're not just trying to do the basics. But if you're getting into the personalities and you feel like, well, I'm really only comfortable with the only close, meaning that one that's only available, if you're only comfortable with that, it doesn't mean it won't work on the strategist. It just might not be as effective. So we're trying to give you opportunities to, improve your leasing skills, but we're not saying you can't use this close on different types of people. So that wraps up that section. And the last slide that we have is now what? What are you going to do with this training? And we really appreciate that you took the time to be on this training, but the next move is yours. So if you are not sure what you're supposed to do with this information now, know that it is your time to shine. It's your time to take this information and actually apply it. We gave you tons of different examples of speech. We gave you tons of different examples of areas of improvement, and now it's time for you to decide, what do I need to memorize? What do I need to practice? How can I impress my manager? How can I get promoted? What do I need to evaluate about myself? What does my mystery shop look like? What areas do I have to improve on my mystery shop? If you need to gain perspective, I highly suggest that you go out and do a market survey, because if you are behind your desk for longer than probably 6 months and you've never gone outside, you've never been a prospect, or you haven't been one in a long time, go out and gain perspective, because what you think is really easy for you, it's really intimidating for a prospect to come into an office and not know what to do. So gain some perspective. Start memorizing some of these areas. If you identify one add-on service that you need to memorize, print that out right now. If there's something about body language that you need to memorize, if there's something about communicating with the rest of your team, print this packet out and really practice it, because this move is yours. It's your time to apply this information and actually improve your leasing skills. So a summary of what we went over, I know it was a lot of information, but we looked at first impressions, how to communicate with your team, how to use the electronic communication, and then we looked at follow-up. The next section we looked at was different add-on services. Again, we gave you exact things to say to people and maybe some different areas of opportunities. And then third, we looked at different shopper personalities. We broke it into 2 different areas. You can probably identify most people as one or the other. That's what we talked about in this entire training. We want to say thank you. We hope that you enjoyed this webinar. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the chat box, or you can always email us. If you have not put your name in the chat box, please do that right now. It's really important that we have accurate attendance. We're giving this list out to all the regionals, so we want to make sure that everyone has accurate attendance. But if you have any further questions, then please leave them in the chat box, or else you are free to go. Thank you so much for being here. We'll put this training on the university for anyone that was unable to make it today. If you have any feedback for us, I would love to hear it because we are always looking to improve. So if you have a few seconds and you can let us know what you enjoyed, what you didn't enjoy, I would love to hear that. Oh, we got right at 45 minutes.